worry would mean to me that there is a concern with not a lot of backing,
Yeah.
or, you know,
Yeah.
I think this is not worry, this is reality. We're gonna have years of Xerox Corporation and Ursula Burns making their earnings number. We will absolutely do it. And no doubt
Forrester will
about
do
it.
that.
So you're not confused here.
You're right. We're not announcing anything tonight.
You know, we'll sell more, but underneath that, how we get to those numbers, how everybody is to literally manage really tightly around the vest, really tightly, and that's not ideal. It constrains risk. It constrains chance. It constrains starts. I just don't feel it. We didn't make the economy that we have today by operating so close to the vest. I think that we are in for a set of changes if we don't figure out a way to loosen it up. And when I listen to these economists, which I try not to ever listen to in the TV programs that drive me crazy.
Why don't you listen to them?
Because they actually don't live in the real world. They live in numbers, right? They do numbers, they do analysis about numbers, and I get up every day, and most of us do, when we walk into an office building. And as we walk into the office building, you walk into people who are nervous about their jobs, you walk into people who are telling you what they're really doing, not the culmination of a set of numbers, but individuals that say, I don't think I can send my kid to college. We're gonna, you know, there's a whole bunch of reality that kind of averages out. And I'm gonna say a story, unfortunately I'm on the news, but I'm a member of the Business Roundtable, great organization, really, really good, and they do a good job in interacting with government officials. And we had Tim Geithner speak at the Business Roundtable not too long ago, and I asked.
Are you impressed by him?
Yeah, very.
I saw him at the World Economic Forum, and I didn't think he was selling the United States in a very positive light. I didn't find him impressive.
I find him extremely impressive.
Good thinker.
He's a very good thinker. I think he's very, very smart. I don't think he's a politician at all. That's probably why I like him more. By the way, I don't know him very, very well.
Yeah.
But I actually, I think he's a pretty solid citizen here, and trying to do a good job. But anyway, he was speaking, and I asked him the question afterwards. I said, you know, when I listen to you, I feel better than when I go to live in the real world. And I said, I think I figured out why. Because he actually averages everything over the 300 million people. You know what I mean? It's like, and he averages over a longer time.
He's macro, not micro.
He's macro, not micro. And we're living every day in
the micro world.
Micro,
right?
And so, and by the way, the good news is that we have somebody who's macro, because if we tried to do everything on the micro, we'd slit our throats. But I realize that he has a different perspective on things. And from how I lead, from my history, everything, I do things very much on the micro, very much on the reality, very much on
the next deal, the next person you hire, and that's the
but
micro
for
world.
sure, yeah, not necessarily the next deal.
Yeah.
I've managed to get out of that, or else I wouldn't sleep at all. But you know, definitely the next person I hire, the capabilities, near term and long term. So I do a lot of micro, so that I can actually see and live the macro. But I don't disconnect. I don't believe that they're disconnected. You know,
we were having a great conversation over dinner about. So you're on the advisory. You advise MIT, and I'm actually on the. There's a new school at Harvard called the School of Engineering and Applied Science. Anyway,
they actually are friends.
Well, back in 1900, MIT and Harvard, MIT president and the Harvard president got together and said, Harvard said, you take the nerds and we'll go that way. So Harvard got out of the engineering business, but they now reneged on it, and they're back. They have a School of Engineering and Applied Science, and I advise it. And so I'm at this advisory committee, and we're talking, there's some recent graduates, and I said, what are you all doing? They said, we're all on Wall Street. So these are people who went to Harvard to study engineering, got out, and they went to Wall Street. Don't you think this is...
I'm just getting it with my pants, or like, this thing gets me crazy, this subject gets me crazy.
You're always going to push your button. So, don't you think we all have to, there are probably a lot of bankers in this room we're going to offend here in the next 10 minutes. Don't you think that this is really the seed of America, is the best and the brightest going into a profession which is not adding enough value to the society and the economy?
So I will preface my comments by saying I've never been a banker or a lawyer. So,
Me too.
I've never been a banker or a lawyer. I do work with bankers and lawyers, and by the way, I like
Yeah.
them.
They help.
I'm serious, but then I'll end and say the following. You know, one of the things that I've learned, I was raised by a mother who could only hope for better in the future. Because the reality that she had of today was not enough to keep her going. You know what I mean? It was.
So she was sustained by her
She
belief
was
in the future.
sustained by
Yeah.
her belief in
Yeah.
the future. It was important.
Mm.
She was sustained by her belief in what we could do to make the world a better place. She was literally a real visionary woman who had absolutely didn't know what the word meant. She obviously knew, she was well educated, but so when I was raised, we were given a set of expectations that were around value creation, around being good people, around being nice people, being respectful. So if you meet my kids today, they will call you Mr. Colony, even if you tell them 100 times to call them, they'll call you George. And we were raised a certain way to believe that there is today, but more importantly, there's tomorrow, and there's you, but more importantly, there are others. We, over the last, I think, 15 or 20 years, threw that entire philosophy in the garbage, I mean, in America.
Mm.
And we've gotten into this really interesting thing that says, the goal here is to make as much money as you possibly can, as quickly as you can, even if you know it doesn't create any value. So even if
And it might be wrong.
and it's probably wrong for you. It has nothing to do
Or
with
wrong for
what,
the society.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with what you like. Yes, I mean, so I go to MIT. You go to Harvard.
Yeah.
I go to MIT, the school that creates. This is arguably, no argument at all, the best engineering school in the world. Period. End of discussion. Nobody will debate it. Nobody will debate it. And nobody.
That guy will.
Well, I'll say the following. I'll say the following. Fools will debate. The best engineering school in the world, and I go and I speak to the class one day. My son actually just graduated on June 2nd from this school, so I this is before he went to school. I spoke to the class, some kids who were gathered in Simmons Hall. And it started out to be a small crowd, but it ended up being a bigger crowd. It was one of the most cool things that ended up happening. I'm speaking, I'm pontificating about all kinds of neat stuff, and I happened to ask the question of one of these kids who happened to be like a guide of my son, who was only a junior at that point in high school. And I said, so what are you gonna do when you finish? He was the head of the volleyball team, you know, striking boy, just amazing. They don't have like ones and twos in the class, but one of the leaders in the class, he says he's going to JP Morgan Chase. I said, what did you study? He said, well, electrical engineering and computer science. Okay, so I finished, I kept talking, and it was stuck in my head, and I said, by the way, who's graduating this year? Half the class raises their hand. I said, so good, it's good. Tell me where some of you guys are going. So they start shouting out names. And I realized that the names I hear more than any other names, it's not Bechtel, it's not Google, it's JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs. So I said, okay, let's restate. How many of you guys are going into industry to do engineering? How many of you guys are going into banking? More than half the room.
Yeah.
And I said, so why? Why? And this one kid said $170,000. And by the way, I said the same thing, $170,000. This is a blinking number. You say that number, I would pause. Because I hire engineers all the time, we don't pay them $100,000. So I said, I got it. So it's the money. And the answer was, yeah, across the board.
But what's wrong with money? Now I'll be circuitous. I'll go
now,
around
so
circle.
what's
wrong with this?
There's not a damn thing wrong with money.
Because wait, these
But-
kids used to go work for Xerox because Xerox was high paid. That was 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Xerox created value, that created jobs, that did solve real problems. I'm not gonna say all that JP Morgan does or Goldman
Yeah,
does
it's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time, but, I mean, these guys go into labs and do derivative trading, and you wonder, once we figured out all that, what that meant, we all now know what that meant, guess what we know, guess what it is? Nothing. Serious. We didn't say that, I didn't say that, it is really nothing.
So
What are you saying, wait a minute now, why do we take these minds, who have the capability, who've gone through one of the most rigorous programs in the world, who can solve problems like we don't have potable water, we don't have distribution systems for medicine, we have an unbelievable fundamental problem with energy. We are digging a damn hole that's so big on energy we can't figure it. Instead of actually driving them towards these types of places that pay $100,000.
Yeah.
What, now, why not go do that? Because there's not enough, I'm hoping, my hope, George, is that after a couple of years of $170,000, they go to an energy company and try to help us solve the goddamn energy problems, or go to Xerox and try to create good jobs.
So they'll go to Goldman Sachs, be disenchanted, then go on.
And then go on. I'm hoping that's what it comes out.
But we gotta realize, I mean, the parents have to lead them in the right direction, right? I mean,
Yeah, but I tell you what.
What do you tell your kids about what they
My
should
kids
do?
are clear.
They're not at Goldman Sachs, right?
Not at all. No.
But how did you, I tell my kids that they should do something great in life, and they should do something that is constructive and helps the society.
So the
Now,
first
they
thing-
ignore me, but, you
Yeah.
know.
My first thing, do you know me?
Three boys, they didn't have a
Join the club. I tell my kids from the time that they were small, something my mother told me. This is before I knew what having kids was like. My mother told me, find something you love to do. She would always say that.
What if it's make money?
Then go do that.
Yeah.
Go do that.
Mm.
By the way, if that's what you find, I have no problem if those 60% of the class that they just love to make, I doubt that that's where they ended up. There's some other coercion there. But if that's what they want to do, I say fine. So find something you love to do. And by the way, it may take you a while to do that. Some people luck out early and get there. It'd probably take you a couple of iterations and rounds to do it. So that's why I still have hope for these engineers who go to Goldman or go to JP Morgan, go to Citi. They may actually get back to something that you love. First, find something that you love. I also say poverty sucks. So be pretty good at what you do. I mean, this is not about being a crusader and trying to live, on the dollar.
With the money,
No
right?
money. That's not it either.
Yeah.
But there is a point, and I say this all the time to all kids, any age. There is a point, and there's a woman at our table, a young woman at our table.
She's in college.
She's a junior in
Yeah.
college. There's a point where it doesn't make a damn bit of difference how much money you make. Make sure, I tell you what, you get there quickly. And so here, you make $100,000, so I'll use a better example. You make $1 million.
Mhm.
Would you change your life to make $1.2 million? So yeah, I'll do that. To make $1.3 million, to make $1.4 million. There is a point where you're comfortable and good. I don't mean like comfortable, sit back and not work. I mean comfortable, the cycle is pretty good. You can meet the needs of your circle, which is generally
Yep.
pretty large. If you're the major earner and you're pretty cool with it, you don't make trade-offs in those areas. You don't jump. We went through this whole time where people jumped from company to company.
Mm.
It's because every company they went to, they can make more money. Unfortunately, I never got into that. I actually liked where I worked. My kids were happy where they were going to school. So I got more job offers than you could imagine that would pay me $150,000, $200,000 more. And fortunately, I can make a decision that $200,000 is pretty good, but it was not worth the disruption. I had a foundation that gave me a pretty comfortable way to view money, a good way to view money. I like more than less, so I don't want anybody to think I don't like more than less. But I also know that there is a point where there is too much, where there's significantly more than you need. And
So let's talk about innovation. We would hope for our society and for the world next 10 years that these kids don't head in that direction, but head out toward a world which is more, where they're dedicated to innovation.
yeah.
And I think that the conventional wisdom is that America is the iPod defines the future of America. Designed in California, built in China. That America will become a place of high innovation, and that will be our way forward.
It has been our way forward from the beginning of time.
I think that's probably true. And you know Neil Ferguson, you ever met Neil? He's the
Yeah,
professor at Harvard. He wrote that great book, he's an economist.
Yeah.
He said that the reason that the Western world moved ahead of India and China after 1550 was we had 7 killer apps. I'm going to forget them all. One of them is healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. And he said that China will be able to copy all 7 killer apps except innovation. That's his view. That society will not accept failure, does not have the ability to think in these creative ways. Now, I'm not saying I'm agreeing with him. This is what he said. Our killer app will be innovation. So let's talk about what that might look like in the future.
So let me first talk about innovation as a killer app, and then whether or not we can sustain it and what it would look like.
And can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Xerox, when I came into the industry, which was 30 years ago, Xerox was one of the most innovative companies on the planet, actually. Xerox PARC, I actually remember seeing the Alto 2 at Xerox PARC, 1979, and going, that is extraordinary. Somehow there's a story here about Xerox and PARC. I know you're sick of telling that story, but how you had all those innovations, but then couldn't leverage them. So we should talk, I think, between us about what is innovation, but also how innovation is practically deployed, practically used, practically brought into our businesses. So
And
anyway.
there's two different discussions. Make sure I get to both. One
Yeah,
is,
okay. Yeah.
how do you actually get to the point where you can create cycle-changing, game-changing futures? And then what do you do with them? There's two completely different things. And the first part of the discussion about China, India, et cetera, and whether or not America can do it is on the first part, can we create it? Do we have the wherewithal on a go-forward basis to continue to be the engine, to have an engine of innovation that drives a good, strong economy? I'm not concerned, wholly unconcerned about China's innovation engine or India's, and I'm hoping they create some innovation as well and do it really well. My focus is on ours, and I'm very concerned about ours. And it's not the guys who are sitting at MIT, they are the converted, right? Those guys, even if they go to banking, at least they know what the hell math and science is about. If you look at the vast majority of our young people in this country, they live in cities, or they live in underserved rural areas. This is the vast majority, 80% of the kids. If you look at the educational systems in these places, they are woefully inadequate. They're inadequate.
Some are failing, in fact. Yeah.
Very many of them, by any standard, except for the ones that we set for ourselves that are easy enough to pass, because we just keep changing the damn things so somebody can pass it. If you look at the vast majority of these kids, they are incapable of competing or contributing against themselves, and contributing to this whole cycle of complex problem, apply brains to it, solve the problem. Innovation.
Right.
Big opportunity apply. We are creating a fundamental underclass, or what I call population that must be served in order to meet the minimum standards.
And you think the failure, Ursula, is education? That is the
education
cause
is big, the big E, not the small e, not the school, not the teacher only, not the book or the money. It's not that. It's the whole system that we've put in place. It's this level of entitlement and easiness. I'm going to use an example I always use, and it's my daughter is a 5'2" tall. She's amazing. Well, very articulate, extremely cute, very, very smart. She decided that because her brother was a volleyball player, she was going to be a volleyball player too. And she's a girl. And what I mean by that is she's like a girl.
I only have boys, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Perspiring and making her hair get fizzy was not how I remember. But she joined the volleyball, and she made the team. She went to a little private school in Rochester, upstate New York. I remember going to her games, and the second game of third grade, I was like really confused. I go to the coach and said, "So what's explain this team to me. I said, yeah, everybody plays, you know, you rotate. I said, so what's the goal here? They said, well, you know, everybody plays, you rotate. I said, so it's to win the games? No. I said, interesting. So this is not a volleyball, a competitive volleyball. This is truly a game. A game. No measures, so the kids can do whatever the hell they want. It's a game. They said, no, we want everybody to participate and feel like a winner. And I said, wrong. What the hell is that about? You don't feel like a winner unless you
you're a
win.
winner.